can't imagine how you've been feeling these past couple days.
Yeah, it's been rough, but we we believe in resurrection. Never seen so many Christians in one place in my life. Like I say, that's pretty awesome to see that. And I just hope God in His mercies will deliver someone home to us.
Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, so interesting in terms of the, content of what he talks about. I can't imagine how you're feeling. And he defers to society, religion, and God. So interesting deferral. I'm not sure really what it says, but it isn't necessarily talking about his specific feelings, though it could be an element of, feeling supported by society, by the religion, by the God involved. Anyway, with sound off, on the whole, very comforting gestures around the sun. So that felt good to me. Downward inflections in the voice when you've got the sound on. That sounds assured. So comfort, assurance. His weight is forward as well. So that seems like he's kind of leaning into the story. He wants to deliver information to us. Tongue grooming beforehand. I'll just say now that I see that throughout. I think that's a consistent kind of preparation before he speaks, though I'm open to other views on that. For me, it seemed like a baseline preparation that he always does. Boy's head is hung. Is that shame? Is that grief? Is it just the sunlight? They're facing into the sun at the moment. Not sure at this point. But anyway, that's what I've got.
We really miss her very much. She was the angel, our blessing, the love of our life. She's what made our world go around.
And can you tell us a little bit, what Summer was doing that afternoon or that evening?
She was planting flowers with her mother and her grandmother, and she wanted to go into the house. So my wife watched her go into the door, and she went into the house, and the boys were on the internet, of course, and she wanted to go downstairs and play with her toys. So when her mother come in, she says, "Where's Summer?" She went down in the basement. She didn't answer, so she went down there, and she was gone. So she went out the basement door, which was unlocked, and we haven't seen her since.
All right.
Mark, what do you got? Yeah, so I would say, again, tongue grooming before speaking. So for me, I think that, these little bits of tongue action that we see always before he speaks is just, he always prepares like that. I don't think we're seeing any kind of preparation around potential deceit or anything that you might read on the internet about lip licking or tongue juts or whatever. I think, again, it's kind of baseline for him. He'd probably do the same at church when he gets up to speak. The boys were on the internet, of course.
The boys were on the internet, of course.
Kind of interested by that. Is that about, is that an alibi? Is that about, well, a sense of annoyance around kids always being on the internet? That of course, is of interest. Why are you trying to point that out? So I'm keeping my eyes and ears open around that piece there. But on the whole, he's forward and agreeable. When I turn the sound off, although we get some of these head shakes, which are about very specific things, he's very forward, he's very agreeable. He's not displaying many of the things that we've seen in the past when we know or suspect that somebody is trying to hold back information. And especially in this case, I agree, Greg, he is taking us through the story that he's heard from his wife. And from what I've heard of her story, it really doesn't deviate from that at all, which makes me feel like he doesn't feel like he needs to add anything. He kind of thinks it's good as it is. It's good enough. That story that does the job, whatever job that's meant to do. That does the job. He doesn't need to add anything. He doesn't need to take anything away from it. So it's pretty good at the moment.
And my mother and her were planting flowers, and we went in after we got done washing our hands, and she got a piece of candy from Grandma, and she wanted to go back over and see her brothers, and I said, okay, and I walked her all the way over to the porch, and I watched her walk into the kitchen where the boys were watching TV, and I told the boys, I said, watch Summer, I'll be back, and within 2 minutes I came back, and I asked the boys where their sister was, and they said, she went downstairs, Mom, to play with her toys in the playroom. I said, okay. And I yelled downstairs for her a couple times, and I didn't get no answer. which was unusual because usually she always answers me. And so I went down there to check, and she was nowhere in sight. She was just gone.
Yeah. Okay, so there's a lot of detail in there, which for me is significant. That there's importance within the detail of the life of the child and the life of the family, and it's not externalized. They're not distracting us by going out somewhere else. It's very much the internal story going on, and I can see it as well. It's described well enough that I can see it happening. I think that's significant. It's a good enough story that I can see. I've heard other people in my time tell stories where you just go, I can't visualize that happening. I don't make sense. This does make sense at the moment. The eyes are consistent, and the body are consistently telling us the geography of it, and the geography seems to fit with where she is right now. So again, there's consistency there, which feels good to me. The father tells the same story. She's telling it with more detail, but the basic story and the basic geography is not being elaborated on or changed in any kind of way. It's consistent. And then at the end there, for sure, we see surprise on Gone, and I think we could be seeing some fear as well. Now, fear and surprise have some very similar elements to them. Fear is actually strangely more subtle than surprise, and the reason for that is if you're going to show fear to your friend who might be hunting and gathering with you, you wouldn't want to show that because there's a predator in front of you. You'd want to show it subtly enough that they get it and the predator doesn't, because if the predator sees or smells the fear, they'll come into attack. So fear is actually quite a subtle gesture. I think we see quite a big gesture of fear. A big gesture of surprise, something subtler around the fear, and I think we see some welling up in the eyes as well of some emotion of sorrow. So again, feels pretty good to me what I'm seeing there in terms of, just as Chase was saying, what might be true and what might be deceitful. It feels pretty true to me.
Knowing what happened, do you have any kind of a gut feeling about it? Do you have any kind of instinct feeling about it?
I wish I did. Just some bad person grabbed her. We have no idea. The FBI and the police have covered every single base, everything that anybody can think of, they've covered.
Mark?
Yeah. So again, 3 for 3, we get the tongue action before he starts to speak. I see what you're saying there, Chase. Let's not discount it ever, but 3 for 3, he always seems to start with that. But let's not discount it, you're right. This is not, and come back at me on this, Chase, this is not a case of a missing perpetrator anymore, because a perpetrator has been, it's some bad person and has grabbed her. So there is a good, strong theory about the type of person and some of the action involved. So this is better off than what we often get, which is just perpetrator, no idea, not even mentioned, and there's no idea. However, everybody's right here that it is running. It's suggested that they're running out of leads, running out of places to go, and the story now has a sense of hopelessness to it. As the story builds, it runs out of places to go, and I believe we see his emotion build around that, and we do start to hear some difference in the voice, some action in the eyes there around distress, sadness. Now, I think there are all kinds of reasons why there might be some incongruence in the stories or just juxtapositions around that, but certainly this is possibly one of the most interesting elements of the story that we've seen so far, because there is some difference between him going, I have no idea. Here's what we're looking for. Here's who I actually think it is. Anyway, I'll leave it at that.
I'm just scared that somebody's hurting her, and there's nothing I can do about it. It smothers me.
Yeah. So I think we're seeing, or she is delivering to us in the way that she delivers emotion. She's delivering emotion to us. And I think it's triggered by this idea of an abduction and the powerlessness of this. I will say in the video that we saw before, we do see the child react to the idea of abduction as well and get comforted around that. So there's some important, within the family, there seems to be some important trigger around the meaningfulness of this being a possibility. Okay. She uses a metaphor there. It could be colloquial. I think you're right, Scott, but regardless of whether it's colloquial or not,
it smothers me.
This idea of it smothers me, it literally cuts off. That's what you do to a fire. You cut off the oxygen to it so the fire doesn't burn anymore. Fire is often considered with the idea of being alive. So this idea of, if she's abducted, the powerlessness that the mother feels, it literally is taking the life out of her, the mother, that powerless feeling. So though it's colloquial, it's quite a strong metaphor being used there. Yes, the eyes defocus at the end of that. I think there's a strong possibility that there's some kind of sedative involved. They've been going a long time with this. I don't know whether we see it in any of these films, but the child in some of the films yawns. I mean, it's because my guess is they're up and they're up and they're up and they're worrying and they're trying to, work this stuff out. Here's where I really think we feel the emotion. It smothers me. What I want you to do is listen to that intonation, and then a few films on, you're going to hear the mother talk about the kids crying. And the music that she uses, the intonation of her voice, the primal cadence of it on crying is exactly the same as smothers me. I think that's one of the ways that she shows her emotion. Listen, what you've got to remember about individuals, personalities, and groups and societies as well. Just because you don't see them do an emotion doesn't mean they don't do it. what it often means is they're just not going to do it in front of you, or this isn't the place where that person or that group does the emotion. So many times I've had people come to me and go, yeah, but those people, they never do that. They never do this. They don't smile. They don't cry. It's like, not in front of you, they don't. And that's the important thing, is that you don't get to see that because you're not part of the family. You're not part of the group. Well, here, I think we're giving an indicator of where sometimes emotions are displayed, and they're in the intonation of the words, I believe. So interesting piece there. That's what I got for you.
Are they asking anything of you other than just people that you might suspect, or situations you might suspect?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I'm at work all the time. Candace was on one side of the house when she got gone. Not even 50, 60 feet away. We know she wouldn't leave the property. There's no way she would do that.
I'm saying there's kind of almost an alibi put in there. I got nothing more to give you because I'm at work all the time. I don't think it is him trying to lay down an alibi. I think it really is him going, I wish I had more for you. I think what we're seeing here is disbelief, confusion at the situation. I think you're right, Greg. That's what that hand slap on the thigh is about. It's that finality of, that's all the information that I have. Unfortunately, I wasn't there. I wish I had more information. Candace was 50, 60 feet away. That's all the information that she has. His direction illustrators are congruent around that. Again, the geography works around that. Again, 4 for 4, lips licking before he begins speaking. Again, I'm seeing a lot of congruence, a lot of fact in his mind around what he's saying. Chase, what do you got? Yeah.
Good one, guys.
Personally, I think someone came up here and grabbed her and ran down the hill.
I think so,
and
too.
threw her in a car and drove as far away as they could from this area.
I know she didn't walk away from this property by herself or off this yard by her swing. I feel in my heart that somebody has came up here and took her, has lured her away from here.
Yeah, all I will say about this is, again, Chase often has a brilliant point about the case of the missing perpetrator. It seems here that, again, the perpetrator is quite clear in their minds, or the possibility. They're not obfuscating from that. Though it's relatively nebulous, it's pretty clear. They're certainly closing down the possibilities of the type of person and how this crime may have been done, and the emotion is rising as we talk about this potential abductor. And so, again, that for me feels pretty positive for them in terms of them being honest about this situation. Mm-hmm.
I've never seen this truck, and I've never heard of it until just recently. But I wish they would come forward and explain themselves. And if you're not a suspect, at least come forward and say what you've seen.
Yeah, so I think the speech pattern there is congruent with before, when we think she's being factual. So I think, again, she's being factual. She doesn't know what this truck is. She hasn't seen it before. I think we see some aggression on say what you've seen. I think she's very strong and aggressive about this information coming out. The male and female here are connected and congruent with each other. So again, strong family, aggression from the female on give us the information that you have.
Please find it in your heart, have mercy, and find a way of letting her go, and where we can get her back.
Please bring her back home.
Just let her come home, please.
We miss her so much. Her brothers are so devastated that they wake up every morning crying for their sister. And as a mother, it really hurts to see your other children crying.
All right.
So I think we do get this idea of group grief, like everybody's in grief. I agree it is kind of odd that the emotion comes out around the problem with the boys crying. I would say that we are hearing the same intonation as we get on Smothers Me. And so this idea of powerlessness, and so I think it's the mother's idea of she can do nothing to stop them crying. She's powerless to soothe them and stop their crying. Also, we have to accept that some groups, some societies treat the female children very different from the males. That female children can be unconsciously treated as less valuable than males. And that might be playing out here, that it's that the boys need soothing. And so we're not kind of quite hearing the value of the female child here. What I will say is very clear here for me where the power lies. Find a way of letting her go and let her come home. It's very clear that the power belongs to somebody else to make this happen. There's a clear idea of there's a perpetrator out there and they have the power to make this happen. And there's already a little bit of sense of hostage negotiation going on there, of going, look, you're the only person who has the power to do this. Again, whether this is conscious or unconscious, I'm not quite sure.
Please find it in your heart, have mercy, and find a way of letting her go, and where we can get her back.
Please bring her back home.
Just let her come home, please.
We miss her so much. Her brothers are so devastated that they wake up every morning crying for their sister. And as a mother, it really hurts to see your other children crying.
Yeah, I think they're being honest. I think the loss of emotion element, I think you're right there, Chase. There's some sedatives maybe involved. I think there are also maybe in that family or that culture, that specific culture, a different valuation on males and females, or that males must be valued more because they might be aggressive or violent, and especially their emotions need calming down. So I hear what everybody's saying there, but I think that might be at play around this piece, or certainly that's where I'm siding on this one.